do that. You were telling me that the Breakfast Club was naming like the top storytelling MCs, and Charlamagne named his top storytelling MCs, and he named Black Rob, and didn't even mention Nas in that. I think what he said, Cube,
Scarface, Ghostface,
Ghostface.
Slick
I think
Rick.
he said Big.
Slick Rick.
I think he said Slick Rick, and he said Black Rob.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I came across this post where somebody was mentioning like all of the storytelling records that Nas has.
Yeah, I want to hear.
And so
did they do it
it's
in
35
order?
songs.
Did they do it like in order?
No, they just named like some storytelling Nas songs.
They might not have caught them all.
They might not have, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about this.
Okay.
So they got I Gave You Power.
Yes.
Rewind.
Yes.
Undying Love.
Yes.
Fetus.
Yes.
New York State of Mind.
Yes.
One Love.
Yes.
Get Down.
Yes.
Shootouts.
Yes.
Daughters.
Yes.
Sudoku Story.
That's one of the ones that I thought they might have. Sekou Story. I thought they might have forgot
Sekou
that
Story.
one. Yep.
Papa Was a Player.
There's a story too.
Phone Tap.
Damn right.
Live Now.
It is.
Blue Benz.
It is.
Second Childhood. Small World.
Yeah.
Last Words.
Small World might be his most underrated story. Keep going.
It's one of them. Last Words.
Yeah.
Queen's Story.
Yeah.
Blazer 50.
No, I feel about Blazer 50.
Purple.
Shit's crazy.
Book of Rhymes.
Yeah.
Last Real Nigga Alive.
Yeah.
Body in the Trunk.
Huh. Know how I feel about Body in the Trunk.
Shoot 'em Up.
Yeah.
The Setup. Project Roach. Car 85.
Okay, they got Car 85. Yeah.
Project Windows.
Yeah.
Beef.
Yeah.
You're going to love this one. Death Row East.
Because it's a story, Mike. You know, at the height of the beef, they started
Surviving the Times.
Yeah.
The Message, second verse. Getting Married. World's an Addiction. Everything on Nasir. That's 35 songs. Now let me ask Charlamagne.
Cop Shot the Kid is a story.
It's a story too? Okay. Let me ask the people out there, and let me ask Charlamagne the God. How many MCs can you name with 35 storytelling records?
I don't think there is one.
I don't think there is one.
Yeah.
And I've been very adamant about the fact that I think Scarface is the best storyteller ever in hip hop, either him or Ghost. And I got Nas in my 3. But this is tough to refute. And you know what? It's like when you have this much work and then you have stories like Rewind and I Gave You Power, it's like he's the best storytelling MC of all time. I can't fight that. I just got to be objective.
Yeah.
Period.
I mean,
too much evidence.
I mean, Represents kind of a story too, Mike.
How can you have?
Yeah. He's literally talking about how he walks through his projects in a day. Catch me walking with a bop and my hat turned back.
Love committing sins and my friends sell crack.
crack.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about a story having a beginning, middle, and end, he has so much to choose from that you even overlook that stuff.
It's ridiculous.
My question is,
Wanna Play Rough that didn't get released is a story too.
My question is, somebody who is on a hip hop radio station like a Power 105, how do you skip over somebody like Nas when it comes
Black
to
Girl Lost is a story.
Yeah, when it comes to storytelling. How do you leave out somebody like a Nas on New York radio?
It's ridiculous.
I'm sorry that we're getting on New York today, but I mean you gotta really uphold your legends.
No, they deserve it. The Mets suck. The Knicks are never gonna win anything. They'll be all right.
You gotta hold the right legends up. You know what I'm saying? Like Nas has done the work, and you're telling me that Power 105 can't even what? He's not top 5 storyteller in this genre?
The third verse to Watch Them Niggas is a story, Mike.
Yeah.
He's got so many stories.
No one has 30 plus stories.
I'm giving you more.
I would
off the
challenge.
top of my head.
I mean, we got 35 here, and it's probably more. I would challenge anyone to find 25 stories from your best storytelling MC.
I think Face got that.
Face would have 25.
Face would have 25. I think Nas has about 40
Ghost
to 45.
may have 25, counting the Wu-Tang stuff and all of that.
You would have to count stuff like Impossible for Ghost, I think, for him to get there. But trying to think, where are some other stories that he had? New York State of Mind Part 2, Mike.
Yeah. I'm at the gambling spot. My hands on it. Yeah.
Had 8 partners growing up. 8 turned to 7. 7 turned to 6 niggas. Got 2 in heaven. Yeah, that's a story, Mike.
Yeah. Money went OT. Yeah. And that's not even on the list.
That's what I mean. He's got.
It's insane.
It's insane how many stories. We Will Survive is a story, Mike.
It is.
That's what I mean.
Best MC of all time.
He's like Mike. And the storytelling part of it is like one of the things where he kind of like,
the storytelling part of it's like Michael Jordan on the defensive end.
it's the
You know
part-
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we're not even thinking about that part of it. But if this nigga didn't even average 30-something a game, he's one of the best defenders ever.
Yeah, I mean a lot of
From that position, I think he is the best defender ever.
No, he's the best defensive two guard ever. Him or Wade. I'm trying to think. There's stuff on the Nigger album that's like stories too. Like Y'all My Niggas is a story.
Mm-hmm.
Fried Chicken's kind of a story too, Mike.
It is.
That's what I mean. Is like his story game. It's like it's.
Zuri with the super chat says, hot take, if Biggie doesn't die, life after death gets more criticism, similar to It Was Written. I
Fair.
can see that. Because they're going to be like, oh, man, it wasn't ready to die, man. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't grimy like that. We got Show 305 Time says, Against All Odds is better than Hit 'Em Up. Man, I think you're getting a lot of people to agree with you on this one. Andrew Williams with the super chat.
If you're going to make a diss record, make a diss record. Against All Odds is a dope diss record. Bomb First is a dope diss record.
Yeah.
Hit 'Em Up is not.
Andrew Williams with the super chat says, Watch Them is a story too. Yeah.
Oh, see, I just said that. See,
Yep.
I was going through some of the Rolodex in my head, and I'm like, man, dude got stories everywhere. It's hard to keep track of the stories. What Locomotive is kind of a story. Off Life is Good. That's what I'm saying. Cherry Wine is kind of a story.
Yeah.
Bye Bye Baby.
Yeah.
Stories.
Rigger 49er with the super chat says Cube got more than 25 easy. Well, that makes Cube a better storyteller than Big. What do you think about that conversation? Because that was really where Yayo's conversation went. Where
Yeah, because he brought up Niggas Bleed. Today's agenda got the suitcase up in the Central. Now, Good Day's better than Niggas Bleed.
Well, like Cube said, I mean, we talking about writing stories and raps because, I mean, Cube's written movies, but, whatever. But I guess that makes everything
Gang
even
signs.
more different.
Ooh, gang sign.
I mean, Cube's tooting his own horn as he should, because you know what? As we see, if you don't do that and let people know what your impact is, people will roll right over you and act like it never happened.
That's fair, Mike. You're absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right. If you don't toot your own horn, I'm gonna tell you what, my 10th grade English teacher, Angela Brathwaite, used to tell me, if you don't toot your own horn, Armand, don't expect anybody else to either.
Kanye West.
Yeezy.
Always got to bring him up. Jay Short with the super chat says, they're not going to mention Nas on radio because then they're going to have to explain why they aren't playing anything from KD. It's a good point.
That's a very good point. It's a very astute
You know,
observation.
And that kind of brings me back to something I said on a previous show. I feel like when KD came out, all of the platforms, or not platforms, the mainstream radio in New York, they were talking about him, interviewing him. I think he did an interview on Hot 97 on Ebro's show or whatnot. And I feel like they did that because they thought nothing was coming after it. And then when you got a KD 2, which was even better than KD, in my opinion,
It was.
no talk.
They be quiet.
Yeah, and then when Magic came, I got real quiet.
Mm-mm-mm.
And then KD3 came, and ain't nobody's talking to him at all.
Crickets.
Leroy Green with the super chat says, Mike, again.
And they wonder why Wu-Tang and Nas was just overseas doing the big part of their tour, not the big part of the tour here.
Yeah.
Message.
Leroy Green with the super chat says, Mike, again, read the credits to Jail by Kanye and really look at the names till you recognize one. That is the greatest storyteller of all time. Greatest storyteller of all time has credit on Jail. I don't know who he's talking about, unless it's Nas or something. I don't think Nas got credit on Jail, does he? Andre Shashir, I'm going to look it up, Leroy. I am. Andre Shashir with the super chat says, Drunk by Myself. Forgot about that one.
Oh, my God. It's over. It's over. Wrap it up.
He's the best storyteller of all time. It's not even a question. It's not even close.
It's not even a question.
And the one thing, or the two things that I had with Scarface and Ghost that I think had over Nas is the passion, the delivery, the inflection. But if we talk about being a detailed storyteller, nobody's more detailed than him, and clearly nobody has more stories than him.
Well, this is what I'm saying. When you talk about the passion, it's like, I think what you're talking about is, how about this? Ghostface and Scarface distort themselves vocally in the process of a story the way that Nas doesn't, and thereby makes them come off as more entertaining at times.
Right.
and I'll give you that. But that's why, Mike. That's why I love the setup so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's like, no, he's amped. It ain't just Nas delivering the detailed story. That's why I like Blaze of 50. He's amped up. Blaze of 50, sit back in a drop top Azure Bentley. Of course, with me. This shit can make Bobby divorce with me. Brazilian candy from Miami. No, he's going in. Like, he doesn't rap like that. You know what I'm saying?
Tell me what she get
cake at. She's a part-time dancer, part-time romancer. Try to be a mother when she gets the chance to. Left her husband alone to raise a son. He's a Pampers. Model for a year, got a bachelor's degree, 33, undergoing plastic surgery. Went from 34B to 36 double D. No, his energy is there. That's why I like the setup. My mindset. Son got wet. I'm vexed, really. They snatched up his Rolex, smacked this bitch silly. While niggas acting ill, word to Willie, about to feel it. I feel it. Should have been dealt with it.
Okay, hold on. I want to respect Leroy Green's super chat.
I don't. The only thing jail about Kanye's album is what happened to the artist from having to record them. That's jail.
Nah, I'm looking at the songwriters,
album
right?
Is not good.
It's Kanye West, Sean Carter, Jonathan Kirk, which is the baby, Brian Warner, Charles Napier, Michael Dean, Mark Williams.
Michael Dean, the greatest storyteller of all time?
Yeah.
Mike Dean?
You can't be talking about Sean.
Let me get back to this.
Where's the evidence?
I'm not doing this.
I just read off 35 fucking Nas stories.
And I just named another 15.
And so what I need to see in your next super chat, Leroy Green, you need to rattle off at least 20 Jay-Z storytelling records.
He doesn't have that.
Can you do that?
Okay, Mike, so I got
Born King with the super chat says Street Dreams and the remix. Street Dreams is a story.
Good Lord.
Jesus, man.
$999,000 for being rich, but now I'm all for it. My man saw it like Dionne Warwick.
And see, those are loose stories. Like,
those aren't even the concentrated story efforts.
Exactly.
When he concentrates to make a story, you get I Gave You Power, Rewind, The Setup, Blaze of 50, Drunk by Myself.
Mm-hmm.
He's the best storyteller ever.
Because, I mean, you heard what Charlamagne said about Big. He was like, man, you know, sometimes Big be telling the story. You don't even know he telling the story. But I'm like.
Nas.
Exactly. How many stories does Big have?
Pick the Mac. Nas came in the game telling stories. Pick the Mac up. Told brothers back up. The Mac flit. Lead was hitting niggas. One ran. I made him back. That's how his rap career starts off. Mike
Big's a great storyteller, or was a great storyteller. How many stories does he have?
About 5 or 6.
Zuri with the super chat.
Very problematic when we say it like that.
It's less than 10.
How about this? And here's the thing about it too. That's not even fair to Slick Rick, so we can't even talk about it being fair to Nas or Ghostface or Scarface or Ice Cube.
I agree.
Because their storytelling, and you want to know what? I hate to say it, it's like much like might have to slide Big out of the top 5 all time, and he's at number 6. Might have to slide him 6 on the storytelling list about that too, because just on the quality of output that 4 guys particularly have provided in Nas, Scarface, Ghostface, and Ice Cube, and then throwing Slick Rick into the equation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because think about it. Slick Rick got more stories on an album than Biggie has for a career, and so that career argument don't work with Slick Rick.
Yeah,
Slick Rick got your story output on one album.
Let's name the stories for the people in the audience.
Treat Her Like a Prostitute.
No, not those. I'm talking about Biggs.
Warning.
Okay.
I mean, do you think Things Done Change is a story?
No.
Okay.
Me and My Bitch.
Me and My Bitch, definitely. Those are the 2 on like Ready to Die.
No, that's another one. Give Me the Loot.
I guess that's a story.
Yeah.
So 3.
I think that's it. On Ready to Die.
No, Everyday Struggle.
That's a story?
I had a caravan with my man to Maryland to take over this project. Yeah. We took 2 texts. When he like the bus, he like to act who's
It's
next.
kind of a loose story, but okay, we could throw it in.
No, it's a story.
Okay.
It's a story. Like it's a story in the way that New York State of Mind Part 1 and 2
Right. We got to be fair.
Got to be fair. So that's 4.
I think that's 4. I think that's it for Ready to Die.
I believe so too.
Most of the stories come on Life After Death.
I mean, but the stories aren't like that on Life After Death. They're brief. Somebody's got to die as a story.
Okay.
Niggas bleed as a story.
All right.
I got a story to tell as a story.
Yep.
There are really no other stories on Life After. Look, Sky's the Limit.
Yes.
Sky's the Limit's kind of a story. So 8. So he'd be at 8.
You're nobody that somebody kills you last verse.
That's real loose because the best. No, that's not a story. Because the first verse is really the epic part of the song, and there's nothing storytelling about that.
I got some little research and insight on this because I wrote an article back in the day of Big's top 10 storytelling songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was looking for, how I was going to rank those, I was like, okay, well, I might need to get a little tricky because I think I put Juicy on there too because there is some storytelling in Juicy. And that could have been some of the stuff that Charlamagne was talking about.
Big and Nas be on that loose story shit, you know what I mean? Where they be talking and then all of a sudden they start telling a story. But Yayo kind of pitched it in a way that tried to make it like unique unto Big.
Right.
No.
And with that being said, I'm with you. I think that Slick Rick's storytelling output, I think would have to supersede that.
Well, he just talks in storytelling form naturally. Like the way Slick Rick tells a story is like the way Jesus do parables almost. It's like, well, that's just natural.
Yeah.
Like he's just gifted at that because he can, like.
When he opens his mouth, you expect a story
Mike,
to come out.
I mean, like, not to be funny, but he literally made a story about anal sex and made it entertaining and made it sound good. I mean, it's like it's just hard to do. You know what I'm saying?
Zuri with the super chat says, I think it would be cool if you guys went over the article where Big is rating the rappers in his era. Oh, okay, yeah, we could do that. It's interesting to look back on. Yeah, I mean, because he was really talking about Tretch and how dope Tretch was. I need to find that article. Zuri said, in that article, Biggie ironically rates Cube low. This article was early 95. Leroy Green with the super chat says, and I don't mean Jay-Z, Mike. I don't know who you talking about then. You got to stop the riddles.
What, Kanye? Better not be Kanye.
Kanye is a decent storyteller.
He's all right.
MC with the super chat says, Nas is the best cinematic/vivid storyteller. Zuri said, it's in the same article that he rated Redman low and E40 a 0.
I don't remember that.
I remember people talking about that article, but I got to go find that. Leroy Green with the super chat says, Mike, no cap, I'm literally going to come out to ATL later this year and take you to this person only for you to realize that you already know him and he's been the best storyteller the whole time. I don't know what Leroy's talking about.
Leroy on one.
Humble brag, rise and fall / thugs calm down. Nas's verse is fire. Let's see. Jay Short with the super chat says people realize the entire Death Certificate album is a story, right? Yeah, I mean the whole entire Death Certificate album is a story.
Except for No Vaseline.
Right. Colorblind, everything.
Black Korea.
Even when we were listening to True to the Game, I'm like, this is kind of a story.
It is a story.
It's a cautionary tale.
Very cautionary tale about selling out.
Speaking of cautionary tale, young nigga doing dumb shit, which is on Death Certificate. I love that record.
That's what I mean.
That's one of those underrated records.
That's what I mean. Doing dumb shit's on Death Certificate.
That shit is dope. That's one of those songs, if it's on another album, it's a highlight.
It's just another great song called Death Certificate.
Right.
Though. The Death Certificate is full of great songs, Mike.
Dante Walker with the super chat says, best hip hop podcast / show out there. Salute 100. A2HH new merch it's very problematic shirt and hoodies. Got to get the it's very problematic stuff. Coming soon. Jermaine Johnson with the super chat says, in a lot of ways, the lack of New York radio support for Nas and Wu-Tang makes their brand stronger, specifically amongst the F the radio hip hop purist base. And that's not what they do it for, the radio, but it does work for them in their brand.
No, see, that's not cool. See, this is what I'm saying. So people,
I know where you're going to come from on this, but you're right.
Listen, Jay got rich fans because they got easy access to his music.
Yeah.
Radio has something to do with that. So when people look at the numbers that Jay does and even the streams that he does, and Kanye does, and Eminem does, now Eminem might have white fans, but you know what that means by having white fans too, Mike? It means having fans with more income typically. And so
they have access.
But it becomes
how they became fans.
It becomes a resource and an access thing. And so what you do when you cut a Nas and a Wu-Tang out of your local radio market, though, is that you hurt their opportunities to get more faithful followers who have money, and they make their money based on their followings and how people support their merchandise and their music. And so to cut them out of that process is not helping.
Yeah, you're cutting them off at the knees.
You're cutting them off at the knees.
I see what they're trying to say.
No, I get what you're trying to say. The ethos is good, but in reality, it's not good business practices, and nobody with a solvent financial mind thinks that way.
Well, there's nobody in business that wants less customers.
Thank you. Nobody, like, don't.
That's my thing with Talib. Like, You know what I mean? Like, there's no business that tells a customer,
Like,
don't fucking buy my
right,
pizzas.
right. It's like,
Don't come in my restaurant and spend money.
I'll tell you this. It's like this album right here, Mike, Get Rich or Die Trying. It's like, nah. If every nigga in the game, Mike, would kill to make a record like that and to sell like that as a black man and a black artist, Nas and Jay included, because they never sold like that for one album. Don't tell me that you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But look at the resources and the access that man was given.
Yeah. Everything that Fifth is able to do now is based on what that album did.
But look at the resource and the accesses. Jimmy Iovine is behind it. Dre is behind it. M is behind it. And because they're behind it, radio's behind it. In small markets, medium markets, large markets, posters, billboards, on the radio, the full rollout. And guess what? Was worthy of the rollout based on the quality of music. Now, how many times has Wu-Tang given us a product like that, Mike?
Yeah.
Think about it. Like, for whatever you think Get Rich or Die Trying is, it's like, well, has an album. It's comparable on an Enter the Wu-Tang, Only Built for Cuban Links, Supreme Clientele, and Liquid Swords type of level in terms of the quality of music. So, which means what he did once, Wu-Tang did 4 times. They ever sell records like that?
No.
New York radio got something to do with that.
Well, one thing I will say, and I like the fact that you're using that album as an example, I think that album is a great example of everyone having access, right? Because
matters.
The type of music that 50 makes, it caters to the hip-hop audience and the hip-hop aesthetic that was going to check for him, but he got a lot of extra fans that weren't even on no hip-hop shit based on who he came in the door with.
Like here, I had a conversation with somebody in the industry behind the scenes, you know, and they just told me that like a couple of journalists were better than me. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm like, they're not better. I'm like, they have more access and resources. I was like, if you give me the same access and resources they have, it's, you know, it's a wrap for them. And I meant that because it's like, that's how serious the access and the resources are. I'm like, no. If I was reaching the people that they was reaching, I was like, they would be concerned about their job because I provide certain things that they don't provide as a journalist, mostly with my integrity. You know what I'm saying? And those types of things tend to shine through when you really do the right thing with journalistic integrity. Like, for instance, the media is who changed the NFL forever, not the NFL. The New York Times report on concussions is what started what you see.
Oftentimes it is journalists who change things.
But it's journalists who actually move with integrity for the greater purpose of changing things that actually really change things. But listen to this. If that writer is writing for like a gossip paper in New York and not the New York Times, you get what I'm saying? The access and the resources aren't the same for it to have the wave.
Yeah.
And so the accesses and the resources, well, it matters in what you and I are doing. It matters with what Nas and Wu-Tang are doing. But the access and the resources have a lot to do with it. It's not the talent. That's why when people's like, well, look at what M sold, it's like, oh, no, that's access and resources.
Yeah.
That's not about the talent. And that's not to say Fam's not talented, because you don't get to a certain place without being talented. But the access and resources that somebody like Jay has had and M has had is different than a Nas and Wu-Tang, and you can see it in today's streaming numbers because it's something that was implemented even before the streaming numbers existed.
Radio played a big part of that.
That's what I mean. Because
what Game say on Red Nation? Niggas will sell their soul to be Drake or J. Cole. Like, you know.
It's real though,
because
their stuff naturally just moves inherently, but that's because the access and the resource behind it. People
Drake,
be like,
man, he's a big one too.
I mean, but look at the access and the resources. It's like, well, I mean, not being funny, it's like he did come into this game on the back of the dude that was on top of the game when he came in.
And that's important.
It's super important.
It's important.
And I'm not trying to take anything away from Drake, but is Drake...
He'll tell you that
if Wayne,
had a lot to do with his success.
What I'm saying. If Wayne isn't as viable as he is, how viable is Drake coming into the game? Part of the notoriety of Drake is that, well, Wayne was at the top of the game, so he's able to bring this guy in at the top and give him a view, and the talent is there to match.
Of course.
And so, yeah. But once again, we heard Drake on the radio so many times before he even dropped the album. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now you have artists who have made classic material that can't get played. That's an access and resource thing. So people are like, oh, well, they didn't sell like these guys. That's access and resources. Because when the money is there and the access and resources in there and the product is there, this is what you get.
Yep. Facts. LP with the super chat says, never knew murder till I seen my man get popped. No blood soaking, layers there, eyes still open. I got a little close, put my hand on his palm. We looking right through me, yo. Stand beyond my way. Jay Short with the super chat says, we don't need to review that old Big E article. The East Coast propaganda for biased New Yorkers is reminiscent to New Yorkers to reminisce over. Yeah. Born King with the super chat, fried chicken.
I brought up fried chicken too.
Yep. Brought up fried chicken. And I feel like we got a couple more super chats. He says, Tribal says, I love Biggie, but he was hating hard in that article. Says a lot about how New Yorkers felt. And it's interesting that Chuck D said what he said, and that's why I wanted to read what he said. He called out the New York bias. Chuck D's a New Yorker, and he called out the New York bias in Yayo and the way he felt about Ice Cube's position in this game in relation to Biggie.
Well, how about this? What Yayo is probably representing is there's a street dude in New York, and he's representative of that guy, and you can't tell those guys nothing about Big or Jay, really.
Yeah.
Or Fifth or Nas. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, no, those guys are it, and there ain't no. And it's like, oh, yeah, there is. There's other guys. You know what I'm saying?
I used to be like that about Cass until I started getting a little bit more objective and start stepping outside of myself and looking at things for what they are.
I was like that about Outkast till you ruined my childhood at the start of the show, Mike. So I'd like to thank you for
ruining my childhood. I didn't ruin your childhood. Andre 3000 ruined our childhood.
Whatever.
I used to really argue for 3000 against people like Kane and stuff like that. Like
me too. I told you, like he was literally in my top 5. People understand this. He was in my top 5 till we had a conversation on this show where you were like, how? You were literally asking me how. And I'm like, Mike, what do you mean how? I'm like, have you not heard what I heard?
He can't make death certificate.
And you're like, man, where the solo songs at, Coop? Where the 3 verses with a hook? And then you're like, where the albums? And I started thinking, and I'm like, oh, shit. And you're right. I mean, Mike, let's be honest. And this is why Ice Cube is special. It's like, no. Ain't too many niggas can make a death certificate. He easy top 10. Because I don't know 10
West Side Connection.
I don't know 10 guys. Listen, there aren't 10 guys that ever rap that can make something like Death Certificate.
Like you said, Ray and Ghost, I love those guys. And you know Ghost is one of my personal favorites.
Ray is one of my personal favorites.
I don't think Ghost can make Death Certificate.
Neither can Ray.
He can make Supreme Clientele.
Can make Only Built for Cuban Links.
But yeah.
But those aren't Death like Cuban Links is better than Death Certificate to me. Ooh, Mike, what do you think? Supreme Clientele?
I think Cuban Link and Supreme Clientele. I think Death Certificate may be better than Supreme.
I was just thinking that.
And I think Only Built for Cuban Links is the best of the 3, objectively speaking.
I mean, for me, I think the Purple Tape is the second best rap album I've heard. For me personally.
Ever?
Like on my personal list, it's 2. And so I think highly of it. But I wanted to have that conversation. Maybe we can kind of go out on this note unless we got some more biz to cover. But when I was listening to Death Certificate, I know when we talked about it, I feel like we had it like somewhere where we were putting it somewhere between 15 and 20. And I really think
lower than that.
It's probably 10 to 15, Mike, because when I think about it, I thought of 2 albums, and I want you to tell me if I'm crazy or not. I really had the sincere thought today that it might be better than the Infamous and Supreme Clientele, which means
I think it's better than the Infamous. It hurts me to say that it's better than Supreme Clientele, but
I think the Infamous is better than Supreme. So if you're telling me that it's better than the Infamous, then it is better than Supreme.
The way I would rank those 3.
Because how can you have Supreme ahead of the Infamous? Because I'm sorry,
I think Supreme's better than the
Mike. I'm sorry, just Mike, in the reality that we live in, there's no survival of the fittest, give up the goods, or shook ones on Supreme Clientele. All due respect, and all due respect to the posse cuts. All due respect to the posse cuts on Supreme, there's no eye for an eye on Supreme either.
That's fair.
Because Nas and Ray stunned on the second half of Eye for an Eye. It's
Buck 50.
It's one of their better moments. Like both of them. It's one of Ray and Nas's better moments. And they're like right after each other. And how many people pick up the mic from Nas in 95 and can go the way Ray went? Like that's pretty.
I think the highlights on the Infamous definitely.
The highlights,
but I think from end to end, give me Supreme, man.
I don't think so.
But it's not that. I mean,
not like a major gap, but there's a gap, Mike. Because I think the Infamous for me is like probably 10, 11, 12-ish, and then Supreme would come after that. But I think, how about this? The only albums that I know are better than Death Certificate, Mike, are Illmatic. In my opinion, Illmatic, The Purple Tape, It Takes a Nation, Paid in Full, Doggy Style, The Chronic.
Aquemini? Or are we counting just solo stuff?
I'm trying to keep it to the solo stuff, but we can
What
say
do you think
Aquemini.
about Reasonable Doubt?
Aquemini, Mike, that's what I'm saying. I listened to it today, and I was like, ooh. Like a lot of those albums that I have, like how about this? Do you think it's better than the Low End Theory? Because the Low End Theory is in the back of my top 10. But when I listened to it today, I thought like, damn, this shit might be better than the Low End Theory.
I tell you what, that's the argument for Album of the Year for 1991. I'm going to give it to the Low End Theory.
I don't think so, Mike.
I'm mad at that. It's two of my favorites, man.
Maybe it's just,
The approach that Cube took into in the album with No Vaseline, they ended their album with Scenario, but
No Vaseline is better than Scenario. I'm sorry.
It is.
I'm sorry.
It is.
And if you really want to know the truth, the records that are on Death Certificate are more important. And they're actually kind of like sonically, the Low End Theory is better, but the MCing.
Oh, the MCing is not even a question.
The content.
This is production versus MCing. And song structure, too. I think Low End Theory gets the song structure thing, too.
I think Death Certificate in the Infamous might be good. I think Death Certificate's better than Supreme, Mike. But by saying that, I'm probably saying it's better than Liquid Swords, too. So that's high up on for me, too.
Yeah.
Because when I thought about it, it's like, man, Liquid Swords might not be better than this either. You know how I feel about Liquid Swords.
Death Certificate's one of the best hip-hop albums ever.
It really is.
And people treat Cube like he doesn't have one of those.
And he does.
And I hate to say this, and, we spoke about this on our show Monday, but they kind of treat Cube like he's an LL-type figure, but he's not when it comes to album making. He's not. Because they treat him like, and maybe that's the
how about this?
The acting and rapping split thing.
How about
but they
this?
treat them like they're similar in that light, and they're not.
Like the Predator is like LL's peak as an album maker.
Yeah.
That's Ice
The
Cube.
Predator's like Mr. Smith-ish.
Right.
Yeah.
That's Ice Cube falling down a notch as an album maker.
Yeah.
And that album's still dope as fuck.
Yeah.
They got his biggest hit. Isn't that the one with Good Day on it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his biggest records are on the album where it's like a notch
well, he
below.
came down a notch, yeah.
So it's like when he became a better hit maker and song maker, it's like the album suffered.
Check yourselves on this. Jay Short with the super chat
I don't know if
says,
Mr. Smith ain't that good.
I don't know if Mr. Smith is better than the Predator. I think that's a good conversation, though.
I think that's a great conversation.
Jay Short with the super chat says, they do the same thing to Snoop out here on radio. Outside of Drop It Like It's Hot or What's My Name, they won't play him. That's crazy. They'll play M all day, though. They do that out there in Cali? Jesus. But that must be one of them old school stations. That's not really, a reflection of the time.
What done happened to the neighborhood?
Born King with the super chat says, the summer of 95 belongs solely to Ray. I didn't expect him to say that, but I like that. Before we get out of here, Drake got on stage and said he got an album coming. It's like he called out rappers that make you wait 3, 4, 5 years for an album. I don't know if Drake's been watching the show or whatnot, or maybe he's just been paying attention to what people say, but 3, 4, 5 years to drop an album, he's like, man, I'm back at it, man. I'm not going to make y'all wait. People want music from artists. Artists make music. Let's get it.
Consequence had some unsavory things to say about Talib this past week, too.
He did.
It's very disrespectful. Now, it's kind of funny that when rappers kind of bring up these things that we've been bringing up and taking issue with some of the things that we see, like, I don't know, people been calling me a hater because I've been telling somebody that they need to, go to work because this is their job, and everybody keeps telling me that you're the best person at this job, but your ass don't never clock in and go to work.
5 years.
It's kind of funny when other people say it, how all of a sudden it's way more valid. See, when somebody in the media says, oh, you're a hater, it's cap. What's your issue with him? But when your peers start calling you outside in these here streets, how it look now when your peers call you out in these streets. See, it's actually better. See, and this is what I mean about how I do things. It's like you heard how Consequence was talking about him, right? Don't it make it seem how I was talking to him rather timid and tame? Now you see how I've been talking about this dude not going to work. You see how shady this dude sounds when he talks about this dude now. Ain't it better to hear it from us than your own?
Hey, man, it is what it is, man. Kendrick.
Right, because your own can be reckless with you because they got to go through the things that you go to. And Drake looking at it like, it's like, oh, niggas telling me my shit ain't hitting like that? No, this nigga shit ain't hitting like that. I show up every year.
Every year. Mr. Morale was last year, right? May 13th, my birthday, I think.
I'm sorry you had to go through that, Mike. That is like forever with you. You do not deserve that.
But Kendrick owes us an album. he owes us 2, actually.
He owes you an apology for dropping on your birthday.
Listen, Kendrick owes the people 2 albums. It was on my birthday.
Was it your 40th birthday?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, that is so depressing, Mike.
Yeah.
You might need to go to therapy about him dropping the therapeutic album on your 40th birthday. Be like, yeah, he sent me to therapy. I had to spend my 40th birthday listening to his ass.
Man, we had a good show, though, man, when we did that show that night when it came out.
You had a good show, Mike. I was thinking to myself, you must have been lit, because I'm thinking to myself, how do I tell these people that this shit is awful?
I think the songwriting was impressive.
I knew that it was awful when we had to go into a discourse about the songwriting. It's like, what the fuck? I was like, we talking about Stevie Wonder in 1974? We talking about a rap album.
You know what's awful? Hillbillies. The Hillbillies is awful. And if Drake hears, I'm sure Drake's heard the Hillbillies. He's heard all this stuff. He's heard the Beyonce verse that Kendrick's done. Listen, Drake, this is the time to attack. Take that spot.
They all have heard each other's stuff, Mike. This is how the business works. See, even though we're media, we're still on the outside looking in. Like, I know somebody that's already heard Travis's album.
I mean, they're carrying around a briefcase and whatnot. So I guess it exists.
Now, what the fuck you carrying around a briefcase for when everybody done heard your
it's
shit?
It's a dud.
Anyway? Right. Anyway, do your marketing and promotion thing, whatever. At least that's what niggas is doing, and that's the way of marketing and promoting. Yeah, he's walking around with a briefcase. Everybody done heard this shit already. Just like, Mike, I told you I was getting word about Kendrick's album. Even before, it's like, yeah, like a couple of artists was even like, you know, where's the project at? Like, this is the project. It's like, that's not the project. What is that?
Well, since we talking that stuff, I know somebody who says that they heard the LL Q-Tip album too. Now, I don't know how true that is.
How it sound?
They said they want us to hear it. I didn't hear any like real